his knees praying by his bed every night. He never told me why he prayed, and I never intruded about the content of his prayers. He did, however, tell me about his family, my ancestors, and the old country, and I enjoyed the stories immensely. I mean, I really lived for those stories. And you know, my name is Pelavanya, and Pelavanya, my great-great-grandfather somewhere as an ancestor, was a championship wrestler. Then the name of Pelavan comes, that's the name. And Vahe, I think maybe you should have changed your name to Pelavanya because you had two sons that were state champions as wrestlers. So, if you will, you can borrow it anytime you want. My father never dwelt on unpleasantness and was incredibly happy to be part of America. For him, the streets were paved with gold. He never mentioned being a survivor to me. He got up 5:30 every morning, went to New York City to work as a machinist, and got home at 7 p.m. Now, it was an honor for him to work. Now, I want to fast forward you to 1985. All right? I'm a partner in the Lamel Law Firm. I'm working down the street. All right? I'm young and handsome and have a lot of hair, almost as much as Joe Vaccaro. Bob Fall is my partner, Tommy Mucciafori, if you remember, Tommy Amaville, Dominic Raps, Herman Adler. It was a great law firm. I know Billy, you remember us all. Well, 1985, my parents and my family, we went to Washington to a 70th anniversary of the Armenian genocide. My wife, my 3 children are all in the room, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, my father starts telling me part of his life that he had never talked about during my lifetime. He had never told me about being a survivor, and he didn't consider himself a survivor. But now I'm going to tell you his story, which to me is just typical of many of the stories that you all probably have. It's now 1910. I'm going to go backwards. Under the Turkish Empire, an area that was originally called Gaden, which was the Christian name for a town that subsequently became Erzurum. I did a little bit of research. Erzurum was full of Armenians, but I never realized to what extent. I did the research in an atlas about contemporaneously with that time. I found out that there were 120,000 in that area of Armenian Orthodox. There were 15,000 Armenian Catholics. And there were 3,000 Armenian Protestants living in the city of Erzurum. Now I'm going to tell you my father's story. In 1910, my father was 7 years old and was living in Erzurum with his parents and his older brother, Gadabed, and 3 sisters. Now, Gadabed was sweet on this young lady. Her family was well-to-do, and they decided to send her to Istanbul to continue her education. And then subsequently she was going to go to Europe. Well, you got to realize that going to Istanbul for somebody in Erzurum, which was many hundreds of miles away, it's like going to the other side of the moon. Well, Gadabed, he's heartsick. His lady love is leaving to go to Istanbul. He was 16 years old, love of his life, he was heartsick, and he decided to chase after her. She's in Istanbul, he's going to go. Off he walks. You're going to walk to Istanbul, hundreds of miles away. My grandfather comes home, finds his son missing, and is advised that Gadabed is chasing his girlfriend, going to Istanbul? Well, he goes and borrows a horse from his next door neighbor, chases his son down, and says to him, Garabet, listen, you wait a little longer, and then you can go to Istanbul, but now's not your time, you're too young. A year passes. Grandpa says, Garabet, you're ready to go. Garabet goes to Istanbul. Now, I have to tell you, I don't know what happened with the girl. That story I never knew. I knew that Garabet got married and eventually, and had a young daughter who unfortunately passed away this year. But now, Garabet's in Istanbul, and he is successful in establishing himself. And he says, he writes back to his family, he says, please, come to Istanbul, I'm doing well, I can take care of the family. So, the family, bag and baggage, they get everything together, and off they go to Istanbul. Now, my father's telling me the story, and he's telling me that, and I found great pleasure in this. He said, now you gotta understand, your grandma packed enough food that we could have gone to America. That's an Armenian grandma or mother. So,